The graduation photo was shaking violently in my hands as I lay collapsed on the marble floor of our Lake Tahoe vacation home, my heart racing uncontrollably after what the paramedics said was a massive heart attack. Through the chaos of sirens and my family screaming around me, I grabbed my son Jake's shirt and gasped out the words that would shatter him forever. "Jake, listen to me. I'm dying, and I can't let you live another day thinking Ryan is your friend. I've been screwing him for 15 years. Your best friend. He's been my lover since you graduated high school." Blood was pounding in my ears so loud I could barely hear Jake's horrified scream. But I had to keep talking because the chest pain was getting worse, and I knew I only had minutes left to confess the most evil thing any mother could do. The marble floor was cold against my back. The vacation rental we'd booked for a perfect family weekend now turned into the scene of the most devastating confession in our family's history. Listen, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this, so before the paramedics drag me away, I really need to know. Tell me in the comments what city you're watching from, and please hit that subscribe button because this story is going to get so much worse than you think. My name is Linda Morrison, I'm 57 years old, and I'm probably dying on the floor of this damn vacation rental in Lake Tahoe while my family stands around me in complete shock. 20 minutes ago, Jake still thought I was the devoted single mother who sacrificed everything for him after his dad died. My daughter-in-law Sarah was making breakfast in the kitchen, humming some song while our 2-year-old granddaughter Emma played with her toys on the living room carpet. We were supposed to be having this perfect family bonding weekend. Hiking, barbecuing, making memories. Instead, I'm bleeding internally from a massive coronary event, and Jake knows the truth about what kind of monster his mother really is. I'm the sick bitch who destroyed his most important friendship because I couldn't keep my legs closed. I'm the woman who spent 15 years lying to his face every single day, watching him trust his best friend while that same friend was betraying him in the most intimate way possible. God, my chest hurts so bad I can barely breathe. But I have to tell you how this nightmare started because what I did was so twisted, so absolutely unforgivable that I've been choking on guilt for 15 years. The weight of this secret has been crushing me slowly, and now it's literally killing me. The cardiologist will probably say the stress of maintaining this lie contributed to my heart attack. It began 16 years ago when Jake was 18 and Ryan Martinez was glued to his hip like always. Those two had been inseparable since they were 7 years old. Ryan practically lived at our house, especially after Jake's father Mark died when the boys were 12. After Mark's sudden heart attack, our house became this sanctuary for both boys, but especially for Ryan, whose parents were going through a nasty divorce around the same time. I became like a second mother to Ryan, or at least that's what I told myself when I was still pretending to be a decent human being. He'd eat dinner with us 4 nights a week, sleep over on weekends, come to me for advice about school, girls, his future. I watched this kid grow up, helped him with homework, celebrated his victories, comforted him through his struggles. He called me Mom Linda, and I loved him like he was my own son. But here's the sick part. I started noticing Ryan differently right around their high school graduation. I was 41, recently widowed for almost 6 years at that point, and feeling invisible as a middle-aged woman in a world that worships youth. My husband Mark had been the love of my life, and after he died, I'd thrown myself completely into raising Jake and establishing my career as a marketing consultant. I hadn't dated, hadn't even thought about dating. I was just mom, just the widow, just the woman whose best years were behind her. Then suddenly I'm watching this kid I'd known since elementary school turn into this gorgeous young man, and something inside me just, Jesus, I'm such a monster. It did something to me that no mother should ever feel about her son's best friend. It was like seeing a stranger in familiar skin, except this stranger was absolutely beautiful and looking at me with new eyes too. Ryan had grown into this incredible specimen, 6 feet tall with the lean muscle of a dedicated soccer player, olive skin from his Mexican heritage, these dark Spanish eyes that could melt steel when he smiled, and a confidence that made every woman in town do a double take when he walked by. But he wasn't just pretty, He was smart, funny, thoughtful, and so goddamn mature for his age that sometimes I forgot he was barely legal. The way he'd look at me during family dinners started changing that spring. Instead of the casual affection of a surrogate son, there was something else there. Awareness, interest, the kind of look that made my stomach flip in ways it hadn't since Mark died. When he'd hug me goodbye after staying for dinner, the embraces lasted a few seconds longer than they used to. When we'd talk about his college plans or his fears about leaving Jake behind, he'd maintain eye contact in a way that felt almost intimate. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was a lonely widow reading too much into normal interactions with a boy I'd helped raise. I was wrong. The summer after graduation changed everything, and I mean everything. Jake got that counselor job at Camp Wildwood, a sleepaway camp 3 hours north of Seattle. He'd be gone Monday through Friday every week from June through August, coming home only on weekends. It was perfect for him. Good money, great experience working with kids, and a chance to build independence before starting college at University of Washington in the fall. Ryan took a gap year, planning to work and save money before starting at UC Berkeley the following year. He got a job with a landscaping company that had him working outside in the Seattle heat from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day. His parents' divorce had finalized that spring, and the atmosphere at both their houses was toxic with lingering resentment and legal battles. Our house went from teenage chaos to this quiet, adult space that suddenly felt very different. Ryan started coming by those weekday afternoons, supposedly to hang out and wait for Jake to come home on Friday nights. But Jake wouldn't be home for days, and we both knew it. I told myself he just needed a stable place after his parents' messy split, that I was being motherly by letting him use our house as a refuge from family drama. I was lying through my teeth. The truth was, I looked forward to those afternoon visits more than anything else in my week. I'd find myself choosing my outfits more carefully on days when I knew Ryan might stop by. I'd make sure I had his favorite snacks in the house. I'd time my work-from-home schedule so I'd be available when he got off work. I was 41 years old, acting like a teenager with a crush, and the object of my obsession was my son's best friend, who I'd been helping raise for 6 years. Our conversations during those summer afternoons became more personal and intimate than they'd ever been when Jake was around. Ryan would tell me about his fears for the future, his complicated feelings about his parents' divorce, his anxiety about leaving Jake behind when he went to California for college. I'd share my own struggles with single parenthood, my lingering grief over Mark's death, my worries about what would happen when Jake left for college, and I was truly alone for the first time in 18 years. We were building an emotional intimacy that had nothing to do with our supposed mother-son relationship, and everything to do with two people who were attracted to each other but couldn't acknowledge it. The sexual tension was becoming impossible to ignore. When we'd sit on the back porch talking, we'd somehow end up closer together on the outdoor couch than we'd started. When he'd help me carry groceries or reach something from a high shelf, the casual touches would linger longer than necessary. When we'd laugh at something together, we'd catch each other's eyes and hold the gaze just a beat too long. I was playing with fire, and I knew it. But I was also more alive than I'd felt since Mark died. For the first time in years, I felt desirable, interesting, sexually relevant. Ryan made me feel like a woman instead of just a mom, and that feeling was intoxicating. God, the pain in my chest is getting worse, but I have to tell you about the day I became the worst mother who ever lived because it didn't happen all at once. It was a slow seduction that I orchestrated and could have stopped at any point. It was this brutally hot Thursday afternoon in late July. The temperature had hit 95 degrees, which is unusual for Seattle, and the whole city felt sluggish and cranky. Ryan had been working on some big commercial landscaping project downtown, and when he showed up at my house after work, he looked like he'd been through hell. His work clothes were soaked with sweat, his dark hair was damp and curling at the edges, and there was actual dirt streaked across his forehead and arms. "Jesus, Ryan, you look like you're about to collapse," I said, opening the front door to find him standing there looking like every cougar's wet dream without even trying. "It's so fucking hot out there," he said, then immediately looked embarrassed. "Sorry, I didn't mean to swear." "You're 19 years old and you just worked 9 hours in this heat," I laughed. "I think you've earned the right to say fuck." Something about the way I said that word, or maybe just the casualness of it, changed the energy between us. Ryan's eyes darkened slightly, and he looked at me like he was seeing something new. "You know what you need?" I continued, stepping aside to let him into the air-conditioned house. "A cold shower and something even colder to drink. Go clean up. You know where everything is." I meant it innocently, or at least I told myself I did. But as Ryan headed upstairs to the guest bathroom he'd used hundreds of times over the years, I found myself thinking about him naked in my shower, water running over that lean, muscled body, washing away the sweat and dirt of his workday. What happened next was the moment I became the worst mother imaginable, and I can't blame it on confusion or accident or temporary insanity. I made a choice that would destroy my son's most important relationship, and I made it with full knowledge of what I was doing. 20 minutes later, Ryan emerged from the bathroom wearing only a towel wrapped around his waist, water still dripping from his hair and trailing down his chest, looking for the clean shirt he thought he'd left in Jake's room. His skin was golden from working outside all summer, and he had the kind of lean, athletic build that comes from physical labor rather than gym workouts. I was standing in the hallway with his glass of iced tea, ostensibly waiting to hand it to him, but really just staring because he was absolutely beautiful, and I was a sex-starved widow who hadn't been touched by a man in 6 years. "I forgot my shirt," he said when he saw me, but he didn't move to go find one. His voice was lower than usual, slightly rough, and his eyes were locked on mine with an intensity that made my stomach flip. "It's fine," I whispered back, stepping closer instead of stepping away like any decent mother would have done. We stood there in my hallway for what felt like an eternity, just looking at each other, all that sexual tension that had been building for weeks, finally reaching its breaking point. I was 41 years old enough to know better, responsible enough to be the adult in this situation. Instead, I stepped closer to him. "Linda," he said, my name sounding different in his voice, older and deeper and full of want. "I know this is wrong," I whispered, reaching up to touch his face. "I know this is crazy." "I've been thinking about you," he admitted, his eyes never leaving mine. "I try not to, but I can't stop." When I kissed him, I crossed a line that would destroy my relationship with my son forever. But in that moment, feeling desired and alive for the first time since my husband died, I didn't care about consequences. The affair that started that afternoon would continue in secret for the next 15 years, poisoning every relationship in my son's life. What I didn't realize was how quickly Ryan and I would become addicted to each other, and how our secret would require us to lie to Jake in increasingly elaborate ways. The paramedic is telling Jake I might not make it. I can see my son's face. He's torn between wanting to save me and wanting to let me die for what I just told him. But I have to finish this story, because if I survive this heart attack, I'll never have the guts to tell the truth again. For the rest of that summer, while Jake was at camp, Ryan and I fell into a routine that felt both natural and completely insane. He would finish work, come to my house, and we would spend hours together, talking, laughing, and yes, being intimate in ways that I knew were destroying any chance of a normal relationship with my son. The sex was incredible, but it wasn't just physical. Ryan was intelligent, funny, and surprisingly mature for his age. He listened to me talk about my fears of being a single mother, my grief over losing Mark, my worries about Jake's future. In return, I became his confidant about his complicated family situation, his anxiety about college, his dreams of becoming an architect. We were falling in love, and that made everything so much worse. When Jake came home from camp in August, ready to spend his last few weeks before college with his best friend, I watched him hug Ryan and felt physically sick. My son was so happy to see his friend, talking excitedly about all the things they needed to do before Ryan left for college in California. "Dude, I missed you so much," Jake said, punching Ryan's arm affectionately. "It's going to suck when you leave for Berkeley. Promise me we'll stay in touch." "Always, man," Ryan said, and I could hear the guilt in his voice. "You're my brother." I stood in my kitchen, watching my son reconnect with his best friend, who had been sleeping in my bed for 6 weeks, and realized I had become a monster. But instead of ending the affair, I became obsessed with finding ways to continue it. When both boys left for college that fall, Jake to University of Washington and Ryan to UC Berkeley, I thought distance would solve everything. I told myself the summer had been a brief madness, that we would both move on and pretend it never happened. I was wrong. Ryan called me 2 weeks into his freshman year. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said without preamble. "I know this is crazy, I know it's wrong, but I think I'm in love with you." "Ryan, we can't," I said, but my heart was racing at the sound of his voice. "I'm driving up this weekend. Jake thinks I'm coming to see him, but really I'm coming to see you." I should have said no. Instead, I heard myself saying, "Okay." That weekend began a pattern that would define the next 15 years of our lives. Ryan would visit Seattle regularly, ostensibly to see Jake, but really to be with me. When Jake came home for holidays, Ryan would find excuses to be there too. We developed an elaborate system of secret communication, hidden meetings, and carefully planned encounters that required us to lie constantly to the person we both claimed to love most. The worst part was watching Jake's joy every time Ryan came to visit. My son would light up, so grateful that his best friend was making the effort to maintain their relationship despite the distance. He had no idea that Ryan's loyalty wasn't to him at all. It was to me. If this story is shocking you, hit that subscribe button, because what happened over the next decade was even more twisted and destructive. As the years passed, our affair became more sophisticated and more dangerous. Ryan graduated from Berkeley and got a job at an architecture firm in San Francisco, but he visited Seattle every few months. Jake, who had studied business at UW and stayed in Seattle for work, always made time for these visits, treating Ryan like the brother he'd never had. Ryan and I developed a relationship that was part forbidden romance, part emotional dependency, and entirely destructive to everyone around us. We would spend hours on the phone when Jake wasn't around, video chat late at night, and send each other messages through social media platforms that Jake didn't use. When Jake got engaged to his college girlfriend Sarah when he was 25, Ryan was his best man. I watched my lover stand beside my son at the altar, promising to support their marriage, while knowing that Ryan and I had been planning a secret weekend getaway for the following month. The wedding was torture. Watching Jake's happiness, seeing how much he trusted Ryan, listening to Ryan's best man speech about the importance of loyalty and honesty, all while sitting in the front row as the proud mother, hiding the fact that I'd been sleeping with the best man for 7 years. "Jake is the most loyal person I know," Ryan said during his speech, looking directly at me as he spoke. "He deserves all the happiness in the world, and I promise to always be there for him and Sarah." The irony was devastating, but the guests ate it up. Everyone commented on what a beautiful friendship they had, how lucky Jake was to have such a devoted friend. After the wedding, Jake and Sarah bought a house just 10 minutes from mine. They wanted to start a family, and having me close by was important to them. This meant Ryan's visits became even more frequent and more elaborate in their deception. Jake would invite Ryan to family dinners, holiday celebrations, and weekend barbecues. Ryan would stay in my guest room, and Jake would spend hours catching up with his friend, sharing his dreams of becoming a father, his hopes for his marriage, his gratitude for having such a constant presence in his life. Meanwhile, Ryan and I would steal moments together whenever Jake stepped out. Quick kisses in my kitchen, whispered conversations about when we could be alone, plans for our next secret meeting. When Jake and Sarah announced they were pregnant with their first child, I knew our secret had reached a breaking point. "I want Ryan to be the godfather," Jake told me excitedly when Sarah was 6 months pregnant. He's been like a brother to me for 20 years. I can't imagine anyone I'd trust more with our child. I watched my son, glowing with excitement about becoming a father, talking about how much he wanted Ryan to be part of his child's life. Meanwhile, Ryan and I had been discussing whether he should move back to Seattle permanently so we could finally be together openly, a plan that would require him to break up my son's marriage somehow and destroy Jake's life in the process. The birth of Jake's daughter Emma was supposed to be the happiest day of our family's life. Instead, it became the day I realized our secret was going to destroy an innocent child's family. Watching Ryan hold my granddaughter, seeing Jake beam with pride as his best friend bonded with his daughter, listening to Jake talk about how much he wanted Ryan to be a constant presence in Emma's life. It was clear that our affair wasn't just affecting us anymore. Emma was going to grow up thinking of Ryan as Uncle Ryan, loving him and trusting him, while never knowing that he had been lying to her father her entire life. Our secret was going to poison another generation. 6 months later, I was diagnosed with heart problems. The diagnosis came after months of symptoms I'd been ignoring: chest pain, irregular heartbeat, fatigue that I'd attributed to stress from maintaining our secret. When Ryan found out about my condition, he started talking about making drastic changes. "We can't keep living like this," he said during one of our phone calls. "The stress is killing you, literally killing you. We need to find a way to be together openly." "Ryan, there is no way," I told him. "There's no scenario where we tell Jake the truth and everyone comes out okay." "Then we'll start over somewhere else," Ryan suggested desperately. "I'll take a job in another city. You can move your consulting business anywhere." And abandon Jake and Emma? Just disappear from their lives with no explanation? "It's better than watching you die from the stress of keeping this secret," Ryan argued. "I'm 34 years old. I've never had a serious relationship with anyone else because I've been in love with you for 15 years, but watching you get sicker, I can't do it anymore." The desperation in his voice broke my heart because I felt exactly the same way. But I couldn't choose my happiness over my son's well-being, even after 15 years of doing exactly that in smaller ways every day. "We have to end this," I told him. "For real this time. You need to move away, start a new life, find someone you can love openly." But Ryan refused to accept it. He continued visiting Jake and Sarah, continued being Uncle Ryan to Emma, continued trying to convince me that we could make our relationship work. 2 weeks ago, Ryan told Jake he wanted to spend a weekend in Lake Tahoe, and Jake suggested our family rent a house so Ryan could scout locations while we all spent time together. Ryan was supposed to arrive at our rental house tomorrow morning. Jake had planned hiking, barbecuing, playing with Emma, just enjoying time with family. Instead, I'm lying on this marble floor, having confessed the truth that will destroy all of those plans and possibly every relationship in my family. The paramedics are getting ready to transport me now, and I can hear Jake on the phone. "Ryan, don't come to Tahoe. Actually, don't ever contact my family again. My mother just confessed that you two have been fucking for 15 years. I can hear Ryan's voice through the phone, trying to explain, but Jake hangs up and throws his phone against the wall. As they load me into the ambulance, I see Sarah holding Emma, both crying because they don't understand what's happening. Emma keeps asking for Uncle Ryan, and Sarah keeps looking at Jake like she's trying to figure out why he's so angry. "Jake," I say, grabbing his hand as they put me in the ambulance, "I need you to know that Ryan tried to end it several times. I kept pulling him back in. I was the adult." "Don't try to protect him now," Jake says, his voice hard. "He's a grown man who made choices every day for 15 years. If he loved me like a brother, he wouldn't have been fucking my mother," Jake says bluntly. "The heart monitor is going crazy now. I might actually be dying, which means Jake will have to live with this revelation forever without getting closure. My legacy isn't the years I spent raising him alone after Mark died. It's being the mother who chose 15 years of secret sex over her son's emotional well-being and who destroyed his most important friendship for selfish gratification." Linda Morrison survived the initial heart attack, but died 18 hours later from complications. Her last words being an apology Jake wasn't sure he could accept. Ryan arrived at the rental house the next morning, expecting a relaxing family weekend, and found Jake sitting alone on the deck, staring at the lake. "Where is everyone?" Ryan asked, setting down his overnight bag. "Sarah took Emma back to Seattle last night," Jake said without turning around. "Mom died at the hospital this morning." "Oh my God, Jake, I'm so sorry," Ryan said, immediately moving to comfort his best friend. "What happened?" "She confessed to having an affair with you for 15 years before she died," Jake said, finally turning to look at Ryan. "She told me my best friend has been fucking my mother since I was 18 years old." The color drained from Ryan's face. "Jake, I can explain—" "Can you? Can you explain 15 years of lying to my face? Can you explain how you stood at my wedding giving speeches about loyalty while planning to meet my mother at hotels? Can you explain how you've held my daughter while lying to her father every moment of her life?" "It wasn't supposed to happen," Ryan said desperately. 15 years, Ryan. That's a choice you made every single day to betray the person who loved you most." Jake walked into the house and came back with Ryan's bag. "I want you to leave. Drive back to Seattle, pack up, and move somewhere I'll never see you again." "My daughter loves you," Jake continued, his voice breaking. "How do I explain to a 2-year-old that Uncle Ryan can't visit because he was lying to Daddy her entire life?" "I'll move away," Ryan said quickly. "You'll never have to see me again." "That's not enough. Moving away doesn't undo 15 years of lies. It doesn't give me back my ability to trust people." Ryan drove away that morning and never contacted Jake again, but the damage was permanent. Jake and Sarah spent months in counseling, rebuilding their relationship after learning they'd been living with lies for years. Sarah struggled with trusting her judgment. Jake struggled with paranoia that affected every relationship. Emma kept asking for Uncle Ryan for months. As she got older, she sensed something traumatic had happened, though she wouldn't learn the truth until her 20s. But slowly, Jake's family began to heal. They learned that Linda and Ryan's betrayal said nothing about their own worthiness of love and trust. They built new relationships based on honesty. They taught Emma that while some people betray trust, that doesn't mean everyone will. Share this story if it moved you, because sometimes the people we trust most can destroy us in ways we never imagined. But healing is possible when we choose truth over comfortable lies. Truth and healing win, always.